we got a camper van for free and drove from Brisbane to Sydney. And it cost us what? We're going to tell you all the details and how you can get a camper van for free too. It doesn't involve points. It doesn't involve specials. It doesn't involve any tricks. It's just something really easy we discovered in Australia. Where are we?
We are in Sydney, Australia, having a great time here for the New Year's, and we're happy to tell you about our trip from Brisbane down to Sydney, Australia. It's about 1,400 kilometers. We did it in 4 days, and it didn't cost us anything.
Yeah, and it was a blast. But who are we?
Oh, we're Chris and Steve from Eat, Walk, Learn.
We sold everything in May of 21 in Denver, Colorado. Sold our car, sold our house, everything. Left the States with 2 carry-on suitcases, and we've been traveling around the world ever since. So when we got to Australia, we've been having fun. We've been doing house sitting. We've been in Sydney. We've been in Brisbane. And then we went to Heron Island, out to the Great Barrier Reef. And we decided to get out of our comfort zone a little bit. When was the last time you had a camper van?
Well, I actually owned a VW camper van when I was in college. So, yeah, it's been a couple of years.
So let me introduce Hippy Dippy Steve to you. He's a deadhead with a camper van. Put that image on you. Me, I've never had a camper van. I've camped, but I never did the whole road trip with a camper van.
But, you looked good, behind the wheel in that big rig, It's pretty hot.
It was fun. But I have to say, I'm 57 and Steve is
63.
And so we thought we might be too old to go camper vanning. But when this opportunity came up, we thought, why not? What will life be like 4 days and 3 nights on the road in a camper van? And so off we went. So we'll tell you all the details about how we got this camper van for free. And matter of fact, they paid us, technically, to take it. We're going to tell you how we did that at the end of the video. So stay tuned. Do us a favor and subscribe. And we're also going to throw a link up here. This is a review of the camper van that we had. So if you want to know all the details about how big it was and how you set it up and how much it got miles per gallon, all that stuff, you can see that in the review of the camper van. We got a Jucy.
It was a Jucy coaster, and it was I forget the brand of
the LDR or LDV or something. It was bigger than a Dodge Caravan and smaller than a semi-truck.
But it had a great height. It had a 9 feet tall clearance, and so you could stand up inside. It was really comfortable to get inside and be able to change your clothes and not have to worry about hitting your head on anything.
Yeah, it was nice for us old folks who don't want to squat and change clothes. So anyway, we got to Brisbane. We got to the airport, and at the airport, Jucy picked us up. We called them and they said, we'll come get you. And they came and got us, and we drove in their van actually to the Jucy checkout spot, and we checked in with them. We signed all the paperwork. We didn't need an international driver's license. We had one, but our Texas driver's license worked just fine, right?
Yeah, it was great. And so the paperwork was really easy to complete. They gave us a walkthrough through the entire van, really to teach us how we use the kitchen and how we set up the bed. We probably needed a little bit more hands-on instruction about how to set up the bed because the table kind of comes apart and becomes part of the bed where you put the cushions on it. And because it was brand new, it wouldn't come apart. It was really
we picked up this van. It had like 10K on it, and they had just kitted it out. So we actually picked it up from the location where they bring the vans in. They put all of the structure into the vans. So we picked it up. It had brand new stuff, and they needed us to relocate it to Sydney for the Sydney market. So that's so we got a brand new van with brand new kit. So we picked it up. We ended up having, the only thing we paid extra for was, we added Steve on as an extra driver. That was like $3 a day. And we could pay extra for more insurance, which we did decline. So the insurance was included in the package. So we didn't have to buy any insurance or have to worry about it being on our credit card or covered on our credit card or whatever.
Yeah, so...
the first place we went, right?
The first place we went was Springbrook National Park. It was on the Gold Coast. About 100 kilometers south of Brisbane. And it was beautiful waterfalls were there. It was really a nice little campground. It was called the Settlement Campground is where we went to, kind of in the mountains. This was not on the coast. It was a little bit more in the mountains.
Yeah, we figured on our first day to pick up the van, we thought, let's not drive far and let's get to the campground early in case we had problems driving or had problems setting it up. We wanted to make sure we had use of daylight. And so when we got to the campground, and we actually stopped and had lunch with our friends Leanne and Tony on the way to the campground. Hey guys, it's some local Australians that, actually they're Kiwi, but they live in Australia. And I had a nice time with them and got to the campground. It was beautiful. So we're up and down and up and around and in and out and around through the mountains, and we get to the campground. One of the strategies that we decided to do as we were booking our nights, we decided to stay in campgrounds, national park campgrounds, because they ran about $15 to $20 a night. They have running water and toilets and trash pickup, but that was about it, except for the campground itself. So this first campground we went to, we got there about, 4 o'clock. We did struggle a little bit with setting the bed up, but we got that figured out with a little help from some millennials in the campground. Shout out to the younger folks. And then the next morning we got up and we went for this incredible hike to the Burleigh Falls, Australia's tallest Purling Falls. I think it was Australia's tallest freshwater waterfall. I guess there's only freshwater waterfalls, but it was a 100-meter waterfall. What an amazing hike.
It was a really beautiful hike. And in the start of it, we were at the top of the waterfalls walking along the cliffs, and we saw that the trail went all the way down to the bottom. And I was like, I don't want to go that far, but that's what we were there for. So we went for a great hike, and I'm glad we did. Down from the bottom, it was beautiful, sitting on the rocks, looking up the water coming down. And it was kind of the dry season. There wasn't a lot of water.
We did see those really cool skinks, though. Remember those big, giant skinks? We'll show you a picture of the skinks. Yeah, and the panda melons. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we were sitting on the rocks and having a little snack, and Chris dropped her sunglasses and went down into the water, and she had to scramble down and get it. And, of course, I'm up on top, filming her laughing because I thought that was kind of fun. But
anyway, so great first night. The first night we brought sandwiches or something. We didn't feel like we were going to cook and take advantage of the camping section of the car or the kitchen part of the van. We were a little overwhelmed, so we just had sandwiches and had a little picnic. The next day, we then drove another couple hundred kilometers to. Every time we go someplace in Australia, we say it's the prettiest beach we've ever been to in the world. But again, we were at the prettiest beach we've ever been to, the Mimba Black Rocks Campground in the Bundjalung National Park. Yeah. So again, we were still in the Gold Coast. I don't think we had crossed over to New South Wales yet, right? We were still in Queensland. I think we were still in Queensland.
We were right near the border.
Yeah.
But when we say that this is one of the most beautiful beaches, if not the most beautiful beach that I have ever seen. And it was a little bit, tough to get to. We were gone off the main highway, and we had to take a bunch of rolling roads and gravel that kind of turned into
dirt roads.
And we get into the campgrounds, and there was only maybe 20 or 30 campsites. It wasn't crowded at all. And we're like, oh, this is nice, but you can hear a sound that sounded like the ocean. And so we had to kind of hike up and over this little trail, and just you look out onto this beautiful black lava rocks and this amazing color to the sand, and it was like baby powder soft sand. And from a mile, as far as you could see, you couldn't see another person except for the crashing waves and the beautiful and the mist and the sound of birds.
Spectacular. And truly, we never would have gone there if we didn't have to go to this campsite and find some place to camp for the night. So definitely a benefit of being in the camper van is we went places that we wouldn't have gone otherwise. On the way there, though, we waved hi to the Big Banana, the famous spot on the Gold Coast, and then stopped at the Dutch Barn or the Clog Barn?
The Clog Barn. Holland something.
Holland Down Under. Holland. This was just a total tourist trap. We stopped in. It was just needed a break, and they make Dutch clogs there. So if you need a pair of clogs, you can go there. But they had all these miniature recreation of buildings in Holland, and I actually posted some pictures on Facebook, and a friend of mine, a Dutch friend of mine, looked at them and she's like, oh, that's the da-da-da, and that's the da-da. She knew all these buildings like the back of her hand, so she was so surprised to see that they were
pretty realistic.
Yeah, it was really cool.
The train sets of the trains that were going through it that was really nice. And I love one of the houses, one of the buildings with the iguana, like a real live.
Not an iguana, but a water dragon. a water dragon, a lizard, a big Australian lizard.
Right. Whatever it was, just sitting on it, just sunning itself. And that was just a blast, just to see that kind of like a King Kong kind of thing.
And we also got that piece of Dutch apple pie with the whipped cream.
We did have good apple pie, and the people there were really sweet. Yeah. It was really nice and happy to see us, and it was a great break on our road trip.
Do us a favor and subscribe, would you? And also on Facebook, in our Facebook group, we talk about all this stuff. And on our Instagram, we tell you where we are. So if you want to know where we are, check on Instagram. If you want to engage in the conversation, check it with us on Facebook and subscribe to us too. That'd be great. The third place we stopped was our last night on the road. By this time, I made a big mistake. I kind of didn't book any place with showers.
What was funny is so we're on the road, we're at the campsite, and there was no shower. We're like, okay, what are we gonna do? Well, the kitchen in the back of the camper van actually had a 40-liter water tank, which we were really happy about. So we sprayed each other with the hose just to hose each
shower.
Hose each other down, and it felt a little like I'm 63 and I'm spraying a hose out of the back of a van.
But note to self: book places to shower. I thought that when the campground said it had water, I thought that meant showers, but it just meant a spigot. So, and lesson learned on that.
Right.
But we did on the second night. We did actually get into cooking, and we got the stove out and Steve cooked a beautiful vegan sausage dinner stir fry. It was really delicious, and because the camper was self-contained, we could take it to any of these campgrounds. It did have a toilet in it. We didn't use it. We just used the campground toilets. We didn't want to have to deal with having to clean the toilet. But it was self-contained with power and a stove and fresh water, so we could really go anywhere. So the third night, we stayed at the Banksia campground in the Mile Lakes National Park. Mile Lakes National Park at the Banksia campground. So we had to cross this ferry, this little car ferry. It cost us 7 cents or something, or $7.
And we didn't realize that we're driving along, and I'm looking at Google Maps as we're going, and it's like, wait, the road.
There's a ferry? What?
The road ends here. How do we get there? And we had to wait a few minutes to get on this little car ferry.
And we had to pay him cash. I think it was $2 cash, it was cheap.
It was pretty cheap.
But we had to have cash, so we had to pay the ferryman. Took the ferry over to Mile Lakes, and this campground was gorgeous. It was in between the ocean and the Mile Lakes freshwater system. So we could watch the sunset or go surfing or do whatever we wanted on the ocean. There were a lot of people fishing there. Or you could go swimming, boating, or kayaking in the lakes. So we jumped in the lakes. It was so refreshing and so beautiful to just float in the lakes. It was really nice.
Yeah, great swimming spot.
And that night we saw dingoes.
Yeah. So the guy next to us in the campgrounds told us that there's possibilities that some of the dingoes come around because people have been feeding them. So, by the way, do not feed the wildlife at all anywhere you go, especially dingoes in Australia. But yeah, we got a chance to see them. They just came around and walked around and kind of lurked a little bit.
They looked exactly like dogs. The female had a tracking collar on, or was it the male that had? One of them had a tracking collar on. They look exactly like dogs. Like I wouldn't know they were dingoes. I think they were just regular house dogs, but not.
Did not.
Yeah.
And very cool. And again, it was an excellent campgrounds. Very close to the beach, very close to the lakes. A lot of cool people that were there that we kind of hung out with.
Yeah, and we also cooked there, and we also got to the Jucy actually included 2 camper chairs with us, so we were able to use those. So when we set up the camper van at night, it was we just set it up once because we didn't end up actually using the inside of the camper van for sitting and dining, whatever. The weather was so nice that we just pulled the chairs out and we sat outside. And there was no bugs. We did remember that one skink that was in the
sticking his head out of the pole. I thought it was a huge snake because all I could see was this head.
So let me set the scene. So I go sit down in the camper van. I'm like, I'm ready for a beer. I'm ready to relax. And Steve says, "Don't move." And I'm like, he says, "Look behind you." And in this post is this reptile head, right like a foot from my head, popping up, looking around. I'm like, Jesus.
Yes.
And we figured out, and then we
looked and saw little feet sticking out.
We got brave enough when we see the little feet.
Skink.
It was a skink.
The biggest skink I've ever seen.
Yeah, we saw a bunch of skinks on this trip. Yeah. Anyway, That was a fun time. So, so we set the bed up once, and then we just left the van in bed mode because there wasn't any reason to set it up for kitchen and hanging out mode. But the bed was really comfortable. I'm 5'4", 60 inches. I don't know how many meters that is. He's 5'6".
6'6".
You're 6'6". In his dreams, he wishes he was 6'6". He's a little bit under 5'10", 5'8".
5'8".
We fit very comfortably, and the bed was probably a little bit bigger than a full, but not as big as a queen size.
Yeah,
and nice padded 4-inch mats, so that was, or 4-inch cushions, so that was really comfortable. The kitchen, obviously, we were able to put all of our perishables in the cooler, and that kept the van cool. Or kept
the refrigerator was really nice and large to keep all of our food fresh. Had lots of great little storage compartments in it.
And watch the review because we go real deep into what everything was in there. But we would just run the auxiliary battery at night to keep things cold, and then as we drove during the day, the auxiliary battery recharged, so we never had any battery problems. Yeah. So so then the last day, and we are going to tell you how much everything costs and how to get it for free in just a second. But the last day we drove through Newcastle, went to the bogey hole, and then dropped the van off in Sydney. Piece of cake. We made sure we had cleaned it out. They supplied a little broom and some cleaning rags, and we cleaned it out and broomed it out, made it fresh and new, almost as new as when we got it, but not brand new because it was brand new. And dropped it off, and it was a piece of cake. Handed in the keys, and then grabbed an Uber and left. So super, super easy. Pick up and drop off too. Okay, so we know you're waiting for how you can do this for free too. This was the deal of a lifetime that you can get to. So throughout Australia, there's a lot of people that rent these camper vans, and there's probably 4 or 5 different major companies that rent the camper vans. And a lot of people rent them one way. So they leave Sydney or they leave Brisbane, they go to Cairns, they go to Melbourne, they go to Adelaide, they go to Uluru, they go all these places, and they leave the van and they pay a drop-off fee. Well, that drop-off fee then subsidizes us. So what happened was if you Google campervan relocation Australia, there's 3 or 4 different companies that are conglomerates of all these campervan companies that if you sign up with them, you can get a relocation van. So I signed up with, I'll put all of them in the description. I signed up with Drive Now and Co-Seats, and there was another one, I don't remember the name. And I would get daily reminders or daily alerts in my email letting me know what vans were available. A lot of them were from like Brisbane to Cairns or Brisbane to Sydney, or most of it was going north to south or west to east. But you could get something from east to west or south to north if you kind of stick with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense that that Sydney is the largest metropolitan area in Australia. A lot of people are going to be renting these camper vans in Sydney and going out to other places. In this particular case, we were just lucky in that we wanted to go from Brisbane to Sydney, and in Brisbane is where they do the outfitting. That's actually where they...
With Jucy, yeah.
With Jucy, that's actually where they make these vans, if you will. They take the shell of the van and do the whole interior.
And they push about one a day during season. So every day they need to move a van.
We got lucky that from Brisbane to Sydney, they needed one in Sydney. It was brand new. It had never been driven before.
So some of these places, it's $0. Some places, it's $1 a day. And you can rent them for additional days at the going rate, so $150 a night or whatever. And they give you an allotted period of time to get the van to the designated location. So from Brisbane to Sydney, they give you 4 days, 3 nights, which was perfect for us. If we would have gone directly from Brisbane to Sydney, we would have done the allocated miles that they paid us gas for. So they actually paid us gas too. We had $150 Australian dollar gas credit to get the car back. So if we would have gone from Brisbane to Sydney, we probably would have used about exactly $150 of Australian dollars, and it would have cost us nothing. But we ended up kind of, going here and there and up and down, and we ended up spending about $200 Australian in gas. We turned in all those receipts when we got to Sydney, and they gave us $100 cash, 150 Australian dollars cash for the receipts that we turned in. So we didn't have to pay for the rental. It included car insurance or rental insurance, and they gave us gas money. So that was so the total trip, we had to pay for our tolls and the extra gas, and then our food and then our campground fees were $15 to $20 a night.
Right. Yeah. We stayed in national parks, which was pretty affordable. You could certainly stay in other campgrounds that are more
that have showers.
But there's even ones that are less, that maybe are a little bit more primitive that you could stay in.
I mean, you can stay in rest areas if you want for free. Not my style, but you could do that if you wanted to.
Yeah, but our style was we stay in the national parks. We have amazing beauty and things that to do and see.
So the way the relocation works is you can't have. You want to have some room and flexibility in the dates that you want. So you may want it from Monday to Friday, but it's only available, but you have to pick it up on Tuesday and drop it off on Saturday or whatever. So have a little bit of flexibility in the time that you need. We had a 10-day window between Brisbane and Sydney that we needed to get to Sydney. And I think it was about 10 days before we wanted to depart, we finally got the alert that the van was available. So it's really kind of hard to plan ahead. Like if you think you're going to plan for 6 months from now to have a van for the first week of June or whatever, that won't work. You really have to have some flexibility in when you need it and being able to make plans on the fly if it doesn't come true. I mean, what we were going to do is if we didn't get a van, we were just going to rent a car and then hotel it down to Sydney. And we had a car on reserve, which we canceled just in case we needed to have a car. So that was the case.
The timing, the logistics worked out great
Perfectly.
For us.
Mm-hmm.
Like Chris said, it's not something that we planned well in advance. You have to have a little bit of faith that your vehicle is going to be ready where you want it. For us, it worked out great.
And by the way, if you're going to New Zealand, you can also do the relocation scheme in New Zealand. And there are some relocation schemes as well in the US, but not as many. But definitely popular in Australia and definitely popular in Sydney. So, by the way, we did, because we became such good fans of Jucy, we did sign up to be affiliates for them. So if you do end up renting a van from them, use our link, would you please? It doesn't cost you anything, and we get a little kickback, a little commission for making this video and paying for all the
check it out down in the description below.
Down in the description below. Ask us questions. Tell us about your camper van experience. We're going to put a link we're going to watch the review here that's going to pop up in just a minute. You can see that. And where will we be next week? Who knows? But we'll tell you about it then. Thanks for following along.